My sister told me I was stealing children from parents who deserve them more because I adopted two and now I'm pregnant. But I defended myself, and now my mom kicked me out. I, 29, never imagined my family would fall apart for trying to help children in need. It all began 7 years ago, but I need to explain the complete situation so everyone understands what happened last week. When I was 22 and had just graduated from college, I signed up at a local community center to mentor at-risk youth. I was paired with Zoe, an 8-year-old girl whose mother, Amanda, was struggling to find stable employment while dealing with some personal issues. Zoe was brilliant but falling behind in school due to her unstable family life. We would meet twice a week for tutoring and activities. After 6 months of mentoring, Amanda called me very late one night. She was desperate. Her landlord had evicted them, and she couldn't find affordable housing. Amanda asked if Zoe could stay with me for just a couple of weeks until she got through this period. I lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment and had the space, so I agreed. The 2 weeks turned into a month, then 3 months. Amanda visited when she could, but finding work and stable housing proved more difficult than she had expected. The mentoring program coordinator suggested I become an official foster parent so the arrangement would be legal and support could be obtained for Zoe. I went through the training and home evaluations. 6 months after Zoe moved in, I became her foster mother. Amanda continued working to stabilize herself. We maintained a good relationship throughout this time. She visited Zoe regularly and called her almost every day. I never tried to replace Amanda. I made sure Zoe understood that her mom loved her and was working hard to bring her back home. 5 years ago, when Zoe was 10 and I was 24, Amanda and I had a long conversation. She had found stable work, but her housing situation was still precarious, and she worried about taking Zoe out of school, where she had finally started to thrive. Together, we decided that the best thing for Zoe would be for me to become her legal guardian. This wasn't an easy decision for Amanda. I saw her sign the papers with tears streaming down her face. She did it because she believed it was best for her daughter. Life settled into a new normal. Zoe thrived in school, joined the debate team, and made friends. Amanda remained involved in her life, spending weekends with her when she could, and calling her regularly. I made sure they maintained their bond. Then, 2 years ago, Amanda contacted me again. She had given birth to a son, Ethan, but was having difficulty caring for him while working full-time. She asked if I would consider fostering him as well so the siblings could be together. After thinking it over, I agreed and welcomed 2-year-old Ethan into my home. I moved to a 3-bedroom house with a yard, using money I had saved from my job as an accountant. Last year, I met Kevin, 31, through work. We dated for several months before things ended mutually when he received a job offer in another state. What I didn't know when we broke up was that I was pregnant. I'm now 25 weeks pregnant with my first biological child. My older sister, Megan, 35, has been trying to have a baby with her husband for 9 years. Unsuccessfully, they've gone through multiple rounds of fertility treatments, all ending in failure. Megan always talked about becoming a mother. It was her dream since we were children. When Zoe came to live with me, Megan was very supportive. She brought clothes and toys and sometimes took Zoe for weekend activities to give me a break. She was also welcoming when Ethan joined our family, but I noticed her visits became less frequent over time. She said she was busy with work, but I suspected the children reminded her of what she couldn't have. 3 weeks ago, I called my family to share the news about my pregnancy. My parents were excited about their new grandchild. Megan's response was a cold congratulations before changing the subject. After that call, Megan stopped responding to my messages and calls completely. Last week, my mother invited the whole family to Sunday dinner. I arranged for a friend to watch Zoe and Ethan and went alone. During the meal, my parents asked questions about the pregnancy. How was I feeling? Had I thought about names? Was the baby's room ready? Each time the baby was mentioned, Megan would give me a cold look before looking away. When we were finishing dessert, Megan asked why I had fostered 2 children if I could clearly have my own biological children. I explained everything I've been explaining to you here, but she was still bitter about the whole situation. She said she felt I was flaunting my family in front of her when she had been trying to have children for years. She said it wasn't fair that 2 children fell into my hands when I wasn't even trying to be a mother. And now I was also having a biological child without a care. The worst was when she said it was cruel that I had taken 2 children from the foster system, who could have gone to parents who deserved them more, since they couldn't have their own children. I told her that, although I understood and cared about her pain, my foster children weren't unhappy living with me. They were children who needed a safe home, and their biological mother had specifically asked me for help. I told her I was very sorry for her difficulties, but her infertility wasn't my responsibility, and I wouldn't apologize for offering a home to children in need. My mother, who hadn't intervened at all in the conversation, neither to defend me nor to attack me until that moment, asked me to leave. I gathered my things and left without saying another word. The next day, my mother called me. She said I had gone too far with Megan because it was too cruel to mention her infertility when it was very important to her. She said I owed her an apology because I had hurt her feelings. I thought the same because it wasn't my intention to attack her, and I can recognize when I was wrong. I sent Megan a message apologizing for what I said, but not for defending having fostered 2 children. I told her I respected and supported the path and pain she was going through, but that I wouldn't accept being blamed for her difficulties or allow her to characterize my relationship with Zoe and Ethan as if I were taking children away from more deserving parents. Megan never responded to my message. My mother called again to tell me I was making things worse by insisting instead of offering a genuine apology. But I did apologize for attacking her, just not for defending myself against her attacks. It was genuine because I think talking about her infertility brings me down to her level, while she hasn't even offered any apology. Now I'm sitting in my kitchen watching Zoe help Ethan build a tower with blocks. Zoe keeps asking when we'll visit the grandparents again, and I don't know what to tell her because it doesn't seem like that will be the case anytime soon. I've always tried to do what's best for these children. But now I wonder if my family will ever accept our unconventional journey to becoming a family. I'm almost certain that defending myself wasn't wrong, but I've extended an olive branch to my sister to resolve this, and she rejected it. Do you think it's my fault? Or have I done enough? Update. 2 weeks have passed since the dinner disaster, and things with my family are still the same or even worse. Many of you said that what I did for those children was right, and that my sister is just jealous, that she doesn't deserve an apology. Many of you shared similar experiences with relatives who viewed foster care from a selfish perspective. So it's not just my sister. I also want to mention Amanda's situation, especially having another child when she couldn't take care of one. I'm not going to judge her because I'm not interested. If I agreed to care for both siblings, it's because I could and wanted to do it. But returning to my story with my sister. After sending that message to Megan and receiving no response, I discovered she had blocked my number and removed me from all her social media accounts. 2 weeks ago, I had the 24-week anatomy ultrasound, and my mother had agreed to accompany me. 2 days before the appointment, she called to cancel. She explained that Megan was still too upset to even hear my name, and that she didn't want to make things worse by supporting me at the ultrasound. She suggested I reschedule the appointment for when things calmed down. I didn't reschedule because it was important. Instead, I took Ethan with me to the appointment. The nurses at the clinic adored him, and he sat quietly looking at picture books while the technician performed the ultrasound. Seeing him excitedly point at the screen when the baby moved made the absence of my mother and sister fade away. After the appointment, my mother sent me a message asking how it went and if I found out the baby's sex. I saw the message but didn't respond. If she cared more about my sister than my appointment, then she didn't need to know any other information about what happened. If she had been interested, she could have accompanied me. 4 days ago, my father called me. He said my mother had told him about the ultrasound and that he wanted to know how I was doing. He listened while I explained everything that had happened since the dinner, asking occasionally but mostly letting me talk. When I finished, he told me what he thought, and he thought Megan and my mother were wrong. Providing a home for children who needed it was never something to apologize for. And although he understood Megan's pain, she had no right to make me feel guilty about my decisions or my pregnancy. Then he offered to stay with me after the baby was born, bringing his new wife, Susan, to help. They live 3 hours away, and suggested they could stay the first 2 weeks after the birth to help with Zoe and Ethan while I recovered. This was especially meaningful because my mother had originally offered to assume this role, and with her cancellation, it's not like I could trust her. Yesterday, I received a message from Megan's husband, Tom. He said Megan had been heartbroken since our argument and had started seeing a therapist. He wasn't asking me to apologize. In fact, he also admitted that Megan's words at dinner were inappropriate. He simply wanted me to know that Megan was getting help, and that he hoped someday we could repair our relationship. I responded thanking him for reaching out and saying I was glad Megan was receiving support. I explained that while the door remained open for reconciliation, that would have to include respect for my children, all 3 of them, and the acknowledgement that Zoe and Ethan are not consolation prizes for infertile couples, but children who deserve safety and stability. After sending that message, I sat down with Zoe to explain what was happening with her aunt and grandmother and what would happen moving forward. Zoe asked some questions about why her aunt was upset about the baby. I explained that sometimes, when people want something very badly and can't have it, seeing others get it easily can make them feel sad or angry. She nodded and said she understood because she felt that way when her friend got the exact sneakers she wanted for her birthday. But her mom, Amanda, couldn't afford them. The wisdom of a 14-year-old sometimes surprises me. This morning I sent a message to my father accepting his offer of postpartum help. Then I called Amanda to update her on the situation. She now visits Zoe and Ethan once a month and calls them twice a week. She recently got a promotion at her job and has been stable in her apartment for over a year. She expressed concern about the family conflict and offered her own support, suggesting she could take both children for a weekend before the baby is born to give me time to prepare. I'm still processing my feelings about my mother's actions. Her decision to prioritize Megan's well-being over accompanying me for an important milestone in my pregnancy reveals where her priorities lie. For now, I've decided to limit contact with her, focusing on the people who have been there for me and my children. As for the baby news, it's a boy. The ultrasound showed he's measuring as expected, with all tests coming back normal. Zoe is delighted to have another brother. She has already selected a stuffed elephant, the first toy I gave her when she came to live with me, to give to him. Ethan doesn't quite understand what's happening, but he pats my belly and says, "Baby," with a smile. I still haven't decided on a name for this little one. With everything that's happening, that task keeps moving down on my priority list. I have a few weeks to decide, so suggestions are welcome. Thank you all. Update 2. About 3 months have passed since my last update, and the baby is now 3 weeks old. Alexander James, whom we're calling Alex, arrived 2 weeks earlier than expected, weighing 7 pounds, 3.2 kilos. The delivery was straightforward, but 14 hours from start to finish. My father and Susan arrived the day before labor began, almost as if they sensed the timing. They took charge of Zoe and Ethan while I was in the hospital, bringing them to visit me. Once Alex and I were settled, Zoe's reaction to her new brother was everything I could have hoped for. She held him with careful hands. Ethan was more interested in the hospital bed controls than the baby, but he stroked Alex's face and declared that he was small, which I consider a victory. Amanda also visited us in the hospital, bringing handmade blankets for the baby. She sat with me while Zoe showed her the baby and then told me how proud she was of the young woman Zoe is becoming. These moments of connection through our unconventional family bonds mean the world to me now. The situation with my sister and my mother sent me a message when she heard I was in labor, asking which hospital I was in. I didn't respond until after Alex was born, sending only a brief message with his birth details and one photo. She responded asking when she could visit us. After talking it over with my father, I told her I wasn't ready for visits beyond the people who were giving me immediate support. This wasn't taken well by my mother because she wanted to meet her grandson. She said something like, "You can't punish me for trying to protect your sister's health." A week after coming home from the hospital, a large package addressed to Alex arrived. Inside was an expensive crib and several newborn outfits. The card was signed by Megan and Tom. I called Tom to thank them for the gifts. He sounded surprised to hear from me and said the crib had been Megan's idea. When I asked if she wanted to talk to me, he hesitated before saying she wasn't ready yet. I told him I appreciated the gesture and that the door was still open when she was ready to talk. 2 days later, my mother showed up unannounced at my house. I was alone with the baby. Zoe was at school, Ethan at his playgroup, and my father and Susan had gone shopping. She rang the doorbell repeatedly, waking Alex, who had just fallen asleep after being fed. When I opened the door, she walked right past me and went directly to the living room where the crib was set up. She picked up Alex before I could stop her. I asked her to sit down and carefully explained that, while I was glad she wanted to meet Alex, showing up unannounced was not acceptable. I told her she needed to respect my boundaries if she wanted to be part of our lives, and that she needed to return Alex to me. She responded that it was the only way to meet him because I had refused to give her a chance to do it normally, as his grandmother. When my father and Susan returned, my mother's attitude changed immediately. She handed the baby over and acted as if her visit had been planned all along. My father, seeing my face, asked my mother to leave. She left in tears. The next day, I received a long email from Megan. She said her therapist had suggested she write down her feelings, but had advised her not to send it. She decided to send it anyway. The email alternated between apologies and accusations. She said her words at dinner were hurtful, but also reiterated that my ease in forming a family seemed like a personal attack on her struggle. The last paragraph revealed that she and Tom had been approved as foster parents and were expecting their first placement next month. She wrote that her therapist had helped her see that her anger toward me was misdirected and that working within the foster system might help her heal. She ended by saying she wasn't ready to see me or meet the baby yet, but hoped that someday we could rebuild our relationship. I responded congratulating her on the foster parent approval and wishing her the best with her first placement. I shared some insights from my early days as a foster mother that might help her and told her I was willing to talk when she felt ready. I haven't received a response. My father and Susan will stay for 3 weeks instead of the original plan. Their help is invaluable. They keep the house in order, ensure that Zoe and Ethan maintain their routines, and give me precious moments of rest. When they leave, I'll feel prepared to handle things on my own. Amanda has increased her visits, coming twice a month. She now offered to take Zoe and Ethan for a full week in the summer to give me a break with just the baby. Zoe is excited about this plan, especially because Amanda recently moved to an apartment complex with a pool. As for me, I'm adapting to life with 3 children. Feeding him in the middle of the night is still exhausting, but watching Zoe tell her brothers stories while they listen attentively makes the fatigue worthwhile. Ethan has named himself Mom's Helper and solemnly brings me diapers, whether I need them or not. The situation with my mother and sister remains unresolved, but I've found peace focusing on the family we've formed here in this house. The path to motherhood wasn't what I expected, but looking at my 3 children, I wouldn't change anything. Update 3. About 6 months have passed since my last update, and Alex is now almost 7 months old. He's a chubby, cheerful baby who recently started crawling and getting into everything. Life with 3 children keeps me busy, but we've found rhythms that work for our home. The most important news is that Megan and I have cautiously begun rebuilding our relationship. 3 months ago, she sent me a message asking if we could meet for coffee. Just the 2 of us. I arranged for Amanda to watch the children. She has become my most reliable support person. I met Megan at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. The first 10 minutes were awkward, with conversation limited to the weather and her new haircut. Then, she took out her phone and showed me a picture of a 5-year-old boy named Marcus, her first foster child. Megan's face changed completely as she talked about Marcus. She described his love for animals, his difficulty with reading, and his nightly routine of checking under the bed for monsters. She also talked about the challenges, his nightmares, his initial distrust, the meetings with social workers and biological family. Then she said something that showed how much she had grown. I didn't understand before. I thought being a foster mother was going to fill a void in my life, but it's not about me at all. It's about giving Marcus what he needs until his mom can provide it herself. She continued explaining that Marcus's mother was working hard on her sobriety and job stability with the goal of reuniting with him within the year. Megan's voice broke as she admitted she would miss Marcus terribly when he went home, but she believed supporting that reunification was the right thing. Then came her apology. She said she had been wrong to suggest I had stolen children from more deserving parents, or that my path of fostering somehow affected her pain. She acknowledged that her infertility had consumed her to the point where she couldn't see beyond her own suffering. Being a foster mother to Marcus opened her eyes to the reality that children in the system aren't there to solve adults' problems. They're there because they need safe temporary homes while their families heal. We spent the next hour sharing experiences. For the first time in years, we connected as sisters and not as adversaries. Before we parted, Megan asked if she could meet Alex and reconnect with Zoe and Ethan. We arranged a park date for the following weekend. Including Marcus, the children became instant friends. Ethan was fascinated with meeting Marcus, while Zoe appointed herself as the guide for the 2 younger boys. Megan held Alex, marveling at how much he had grown since the only photo she had seen of him as a newborn. Since then, we've had monthly family gatherings. The relationship continues to heal. There are moments of tension when old wounds resurface, but we keep moving forward. My relationship with my mother has been more complicated to repair. Amanda remains a constant presence in our lives. She recently started dating someone new, and last month brought him to dinner at our house. Watching her introduce him to Zoe and Ethan was a powerful moment. Zoe turned 16 last week. While preparing her birthday dinner, she asked if we could talk privately. She said that after thinking about it for a long time, she wanted to make our family connection official through adoption. We've talked about this over the years, always with the understanding that it would be her choice when and if she was ready. Hearing her say she was ready made me cry. We'll begin the legal process next month. Ethan, now 4, still adores his older sister and has appointed himself Alex's personal entertainer. Alex laughs more with Ethan than with anyone else. Megan and Tom are preparing to welcome their second foster child, a newborn whose mother needs time to complete a treatment program. Megan called me to ask for advice on setting up a nursery, and we spent hours talking about the practical and emotional aspects of fostering a baby. Marcus continues to thrive in their care, and reunification is now planned for next spring. When I signed up to be a mentor, I never imagined I would become a mother 3 times over. I would go through a family breakdown that seemed irreparable, and finally a reconciliation. There are still things to work out with my mother, but everything else continues to fall into place. Edit. Some wanted to know about Alex's father. He moved away for work, as I mentioned before, but he is part of Alex's life. He visits occasionally and has also committed to child support. When Alex is older, we'll talk about him spending more time with his father and those things. Update 4. After years of being a full-time mother of 3, reinforcements have arrived. I'm going to tell you what my life has been like. During this time, my relationship with Megan has improved enormously, to the point where she has committed to watching my children to give me a full weekend to myself. She and the 2 foster children who were in her home at that time had a great weekend, according to Alex. Even Zoe, who is somewhat older, was happy to spend time with her siblings and her cousins, as she also calls them. Megan and Tom have already started the formal adoption process for a girl whose parents have many problems taking care of her. Amanda is still an important part of Ethan and Zoe's lives. They don't mind having 2 moms, and neither do I. I know it's not the most common arrangement in the world, but it works for all of us, and that's all that matters. Zoe has recently gone off to college thanks to the scholarships she earned after a lot of effort. A lot. Both Amanda and I are very proud. Meanwhile, Ethan and Alex are old enough to play together, and that's what they do all day, as long as Ethan doesn't have too much homework from school. But I've always talked about my children and little about my personal relationships. Well, someone recently moved in with me, and that someone is Alex's father. After some time, he returned to live here and began spending more and more time with Alex, though also with me. We reconnected and started dating again, and now we've taken the step of moving in together. We've been living together for 2 months already, but we haven't wasted time and have invited Megan and Tom to barbecues. Or they've invited us to their house. When that happens, you can't find a quiet corner in the house. But we love it that way. Now my mother is cut out of our lives. After an incident at Megan's house. She was watching Ethan and Alex while I had a mother-daughter day with Zoe. She showed up there, clearly understanding but not applying my rule about staying away from us. My mother wanted to see Megan's children, with whom she did have a good relationship until then, and also mine. But she didn't accept no for an answer after Megan told her she could see hers when mine weren't there. I don't want to go into detail, but Megan got so angry with our mother that she forbade her from seeing hers. Also, she tried to get so close to Alex that she ended up hitting and pushing Ethan in the process. It was an accident, but an accident caused by her negligence. So yes, she's cut out of our lives, not just mine. Who isn't cut out, especially from the barbecues, is my father. Maybe he can't always make the 3-hour trip here, but when you mention there will be a barbecue, I would swear I hear the door knock while we're still talking on the phone. I would be offended if he only came for the barbecues if I didn't know he makes that trip at his age for his grandchildren. He has even traveled in snow when one of the children was sick, which brings a tear to my cheek every time I think about it. And that's our life. Between children's problems, barbecues, and grandparents, we just need a dog in the equation. But that would only mean more concerns about them not eating all the ribs at the barbecue. Because my father wouldn't be the only one interested.